Are in number 10, and of course from way before that you have been with Boris Johnson. You worked with him for over a decade.
It's an odd day today because I was there right at the very beginning when he was putting together his mayoral campaign in 2008 in the old county hall just down the river there.
Yes.
And here we are on the day that his main political journey has come to an end. I don't see any way back for him after this, obviously. So it's a very strange day, and look, those of us who have worked with him closely, and there are lots of us, we could always see the potential for something like this to happen. His weaknesses were obvious to everyone, including the public, by the way. But a lot of us tonight are thinking, what a missed opportunity. He had
an 80-seat majority.
80-seat majority. The ability to communicate way beyond Westminster. He had the potential to build a whole new political coalition and use it to make real changes in this country that are so desperately needed. And he wasn't able to do that, and that is a shame because this country is badly in need of change and fixing.
Alex, is perhaps the fundamental problem here that he doesn't really have a strong political philosophy, that he's in politics, it's a career, he was always ambitious to be someone, to reach the top of the tree, and it was more about him reaching the top of the tree than it was about achieving policy objectives and goals. And that when you're in number 10, and Mrs. Thatcher used to say, in a crisis, back to first principles. Well, she had first principles. You could agree with them or disagree with them, but you know, I mean, perhaps I've been a bit sarcastic, perhaps some of the audience don't like it, but I've been calling you a metropolitan liberal rather than conservative. I mean, what is he really politically?
Well, I think this is the problem. He did not have a guiding mission. He did not have an agenda. He had his fair share of slogans and phrases, yes, but he didn't have anything really substantial behind that. And the problem with that is, when the going gets tough, as it always does at that level of government,
yes,
he did not have a core agenda to return to. He did not have something that his supporters could unite around. So when he talked during moments of crisis about, well, let's get on with the job, let's get on with governing, people would rightly say, well, get on with what?
Yeah.
That was the problem.
What's it really all about?
That was the problem. I'll give you one small example. 2 weeks before he took over as Prime Minister, I was in this so-called transition team that obviously failed to organise a transition for many reasons. And we all tried to sit him down for a meeting for him to tell us what are the priorities, because there's an awful lot that needs organising. We eventually had that meeting, and the meeting concluded with him saying, well, I want everything. And of course the problem with that, if everything's a priority, nothing is.
Yeah. The one thing that shocked me in those early days when you were there, the team was being put together to go into number 10, I was genuinely astonished to see Dominic Cummings going into number 10 and taking a senior position, because it had seemed to me in my interactions with him and looking back at the history, and David Cameron, you know, had warned about this guy. I mean, I'm not saying I always agree with David Cameron, but he'd warned about this guy. And it seemed to me to be just a gross error in judgment in getting Cummings in. Just how destructive do you think Cummings is? I mean, I'm looking at his Twitter feed today, it's vile. It's all negative. But how much damage did Cummings do him, do you think?
An awful lot, because he brought Cummings in because he panicked. He panicked because he didn't have a plan. He didn't know what to do.
Right.
So in that, and it's literally days before he took office, he panicked. He calls Cummings, and Cummings, of course, brings his own team in his own agenda. Now, I will give him credit.
And is that when you left?
Yes, I mean, because that's when there were a team of advisors who were meant to go in, who then suddenly were not part of Cummings' team, and who therefore were no longer part of, you know, we were a different tribe, and some of us sort of stuck around for a bit. The point is, I'll give him credit for actually creating the focus and discipline to get us through that constitutional mess. Okay, he does deserve credit for that. But the problem, the longer-term problem, was Boris was never going to accept the Vote Leave crew to essentially use him as a vessel. He was never going to accept that. That was always going to come to a head eventually. And when it did come to a head, there was no replacement for it, because all of the people previously loyal to him had been, you know, chopped by Cummings' crew.
You'd all been turfed out.
Exactly. And look, it's politics, it's life.
Yeah.
You know, fair enough.